ESL 103 and 203, Listening 1, pages 172 to 175. You are going to listen to a radio program about millionaire lifestyles. Before you listen, circle the best definition for the word or phrase in bold. Number 1. If you want to save money, you could stop eating out in expensive restaurants. To save money means to keep money, to use in the future. I just paid my college tuition. That's why I can't afford to go out this weekend. What does afford mean? To have enough money to buy or do something. 3. Sarah took out a big loan to buy her first house. What is a loan? An amount of money that you borrow and have to pay back. You could have a house loan for a mortgage, a car loan, or student loan. Number 4, he used his credit card to go on vacation. Now he has a huge debt. Obviously, this would be money that is owed to someone else. My cousin is a millionaire. He has 3 houses and 4 cars, and he goes on exotic vacations every year. A millionaire has more than $1 million. 6. I borrowed money to buy my car. Every month I have to make a $300 payment. A payment is an amount of money paid. And 7. Marta puts 10% of every paycheck into the bank. Now she has $15,000 in savings. Savings is money you keep, usually in a bank. In 8.1, you're going to hear an introduction to an author who wrote a book, The Secret of Being Wealthy. Listen to the introduction on the radio program about millionaire lifestyles. Discuss the questions. Read and consider these questions on your own. Number 1, the speaker says that the results of the study were surprising. Can you guess why they were surprising? Number 2, what does wealthy mean? And 3, what do you think the rest of the program will be about? Here's the introduction.
In this week's program, I'd like to talk about a book that has changed the way I think about money. It's called The Secret of Being Wealthy. It was written by a business school graduate named John Holm, who decided to study the behavior of wealthy people. He paid close attention to what rich people do, checking where they eat, what they buy, how they live, and so on. The results of his study were pretty surprising.
You're about to hear more from the radio program. But first, take a look at this list. These are possible behaviors that millionaires might do. You are going to put a check next to the ones that you think are true. For example, number 1, millionaires drive luxury cars and eat in expensive restaurants. I would say that's probably true. I think millionaires do drive luxury cars, and I think they eat out a lot. If I was a millionaire, I would never cook. Number 2, millionaires know how much money they spend on food, clothes, etc. I'm not putting a check because I don't think so. If you had $1 million, you probably wouldn't keep track of it, right? 3, do millionaires live in the same place for a long time? I don't think so. They might go to their other houses in other countries. 4, millionaires don't spend a lot of money on cars. No, I don't think that's true either. I think they do spend a lot of money, so I won't put a check. Do millionaires have successful relationships? Probably. If you have a lot of money, what is there to fight about? 6, millionaires borrow money from the bank. No, I don't think they do. They probably don't need to. 7, millionaires are happy with what they have? Probably. I'd be happy. And 8, millionaires buy expensive things to feel better. I think so. Here's 8.2. You're going to listen to it twice. I'll only post it to the video once, so feel free to go back and listen as many times as you need to. First, complete exercise 5. Underline the behaviors in exercise 4 that it says are true of millionaires. So these were just my guesses. Now listen to the woman talk about it, and if it really is true, underline it. Then go back and do exercise 6, and that's where we'll take some notes. Listen to the radio program again and complete the notes with numbers and percentages. What percentage of millionaires know how much money they spend every year? What percentage of millionaires have lived in the same house for over blank years? Again, you're listening for numbers. Listen to 8.2 as many times as you need, then continue to see the answers.
When you think of someone who is very rich, what comes to mind? Most people think that rich people live lavish lifestyles. That is, they drive very expensive cars, eat in expensive restaurants, own a yacht, or live in big houses. But as John Holm discovered, people who have money don't actually do these things. Most millionaires actually seem to have ordinary lifestyles. In other words, they have normal cars, average houses, and so on. On the other hand, people who look rich, the people who drive the latest Ferrari or only wear designer clothes, may not actually be rich at all. Instead, they have spent all their money trying to show off, showing other people that they might be wealthy. In other words, having expensive things is not always a sign that someone is rich. So, what do millionaires do? And what can we learn from them? Well, millionaires are often financially savvy. To put it another way, they're smart about how to save and spend money. The first important thing is that millionaires always have a good handle on their budget. In other words, they know how much they're spending. According to Holm, around 75% of millionaires know exactly how much money they have, and they know exactly how much they spend on food, bills, clothes, etc. As a result, they don't spend too much, and they don't get into debt. They can plan for the future and save their money. To sum up, the lesson here is that you should never spend more money than you have. Another surprising fact is that millionaires usually have simple lifestyles. They have nice houses and nice cars, but they don't spend all their money on these things. In fact, most rich people stay in the same place for a very long time and don't live in big, expensive palaces. Indeed, according to John Holm, half of millionaires have lived in the same house for 20 years. Also, around 65% of millionaires live in homes that cost $350,000 or less. Again, the important lesson here is to live within your means. That is, don't spend more money than you have. If you spend all your savings on a luxury BMW, then you probably aren't rich. You just want to look rich. In fact, the study reveals that 86% of luxury cars are bought by people who can't afford them. Most rich people don't have bank loans. They only spend a small percentage of what they have, and they save or invest the rest. Now here is an interesting fact. The study shows that most millionaires have very happy relationships. Not only are they married, but they stay married for a long time. In John Holm's opinion, this is very important because of the golden rule about saving money. There is no doubt that it's more difficult to save money if you are single. One effect of being a couple is that it's easier to save money. If there are two of you, it's easier to pay attention to what money you have and what you're spending. And of course, people who don't have huge bank loans and debts are happier. If you don't have to worry about the monthly credit card payments, you're less likely to buy things to make you feel better. People with debt often spend more time shopping just to make themselves feel happier, but real millionaires don't need to do this. So, what can we learn from the wealthy? The answer is surprisingly simple. Don't spend more money than you have. Don't get into debt or take out bank loans. Pay close attention to your money and don't spend time trying to show other people that you're rich. In John Holmes' opinion, being wealthy is a feeling. That is, it doesn't mean being rich or having millions of dollars. It means being happy with what you have.
Continue from this point after you have done exercises 5 and 6 on your own. Are you ready to move on? Let's check our work. Remember, this is the opinion of the author of this book. This is not necessarily fact. But 1, do millionaires drive luxury cars and eat in expensive restaurants? No. The author actually says that they don't indulge in these behaviors. 2 is correct. Millionaires do know how much money they spend on food and clothes. I didn't put a check. I didn't think that was true, but it is. They typically know exactly how much money they spend. They also live in the same place for a long time. I was surprised to hear this. Millionaires don't spend a lot of money on cars. Remember, they said if you drive a BMW, you're probably trying to show off wealth that you don't have. 5, do they have successful relationships? Yes, typically they do. 6, borrow money from the bank. No, millionaires typically do not borrow money from the bank. They only spend the money that they have. I was correct about this. 7, are millionaires happy with what they have? Typically, most of the time, yes. And do they buy expensive things to feel better? No, I was incorrect about that assumption. Let's go down to exercise 6. 75% of millionaires know how much they spend every year. What percentage of millionaires have lived in the same house? 50% of millionaires have lived in the same house for over 20 years. About 65% of millionaires live in homes that cost $350,000 or less. And finally, 86% of luxury cars are owned by people who can't afford them. Interesting. Understanding paraphrases. You can read this box on your own, but basically a paraphrase is to repeat the same idea using different words. In Kane, you'll be asked to paraphrase articles. So you might read a newspaper article and then put it in your own words or paraphrase the main idea. An example is, most people think that rich people live lavish lifestyles. What is a lavish lifestyle? To drive very expensive cars, eat in expensive restaurants, own a yacht, or live in big houses. So this, underlined, is the same as this. Millionaires are often financially savvy. They use this phrase. To put it another way, they are smart about how to save and spend money. So to be financially savvy is to be smart about how to save and spend money. Let's try these. Sometimes speakers paraphrase without using an introductory phase. So be prepared. You don't always need this. This is kind of an obvious way of showing paraphrasing, but sometimes it's without. John Holmes decided to study the behavior of wealthy people. In other words, what did he do? He paid close attention to what rich people did. Let's underline the paraphrases here. Number 1, the important lesson here is to live within your means. That is, what does that mean? Don't spend more money than you have. 2, instead, they have spent all of their money trying to show off. What is showing off? Showing other people that they might be wealthy. All right, now we've got an example without the dash. Even though Liz is a millionaire, she's very frugal. What does frugal mean? In other words, she's careful about where she spends her money. And 4, When I was growing up, my family was economically disadvantaged. To put it another way, we didn't have much money. Always look for paraphrasing, especially as English language learners. These are really helpful ways to find out the definition of a new word, like frugal. Pronunciation for listening, silent letters. Some English words include letters that are not pronounced. An example of this might be right. In right, it's a silent W. Another word, knight. A knight who rides on a horse has a silent K. Listen to the sentences. Pay attention to the pronunciation of the words in bold. Remember, there aren't any specific rules about which letters are silent. The best way to do these, to learn them, is to just memorize them. Listen to 8.3 and circle the letters that are not pronounced.
1.
Most people think that rich people live lavish lifestyles. That is, they drive very expensive cars, eat in expensive restaurants, own a yacht, or live in big houses.
2.
In other words, having expensive things is not always a sign that someone is rich.
3.
On the other hand, people who look rich, the people who drive the latest Ferrari or only wear designer clothes, may not actually be rich at all.
4.
As a result, they don't spend too much and they don't get into debt.
5.
There is no doubt that it's more difficult to save money if you are single.
6.
So, what can we learn from the wealthy? The answer is surprisingly simple.
Here are the answers. In the word yacht, no C is pronounced. Yacht. Yacht. Sign, no G is pronounced. It's not sign, it's sign. Another silent G in designers. Designer clothes. Debt. Debt is not debt, it's a silent B. Another silent B in doubt. Doubt. And a W is omitted in answer. Answer. Nice work.